It's official. Kathleen Wilson will run for re-election for her City of Charleston Council seat. In this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, I speak exclusively with her one-on-one. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. It's so good to see you.
It's good to see you, Quintin. Thank you.
Anytime. Well, you know, I'm wearing my solo clip glasses from yesterday.
As I said, those are designer brand. No question.
Yes. And take me back to yesterday, because obviously we were all excited about the whole entire solar eclipse. What letter grade would you give the city of Charleston as far as performance?
I'd give the city pretty high marks. They know how to anticipate a large event. We've been through this. Well, we're through it every year with Spoleto and the various festivals that come into town. So the city has a great plan for event management. What a lot of people don't understand is the city has a great plan for emergency management as well. Natural disaster, man-made disaster. We learned after Hugo and took that information and developed it into a terrific emergency management plan, and other cities now come to us and ask for advice.
Wow. Well, let me talk to you more about emergencies. Obviously, this is the headline from the city paper. It says this: Charleston County Council votes to kill support for West Ashley Bridge bike lane. Summary proposes plan for safe bike access on James Island Connector. What plan does the city have in place when it comes to bicycles?
The city is trying to make things as bicycle and pedestrian friendly, but we have some pretty significant challenges. The James Island Connector is something that we studied, probably just 2 years or so ago. And SCDOT gave us a list of non-negotiables as far as opening that bridge to bike and pedestrian. And it's a pretty steep cost, and some of the things that they want, the cycling community actually said were not needed, but we're just at the very, very beginning.
Let me take you to something else that's going on right now, and that's really the debate after the deadly protests in Charlottesville. As you know, the Charleston City Council unanimously passed a resolution in wake of the Charlottesville protests. Where are you still emotionally when you think of Charlottesville?
Something that didn't need to happen. There was an innocent woman who was mowed down. That didn't need to happen. It was ugly, it was vicious. And we will never ever condone that kind of behavior in Charleston. And I think Charleston still showed what a loving city this is after the Emanuel 9.
Right.
And that behavior, I don't see it changing with the events that happen in Charlottesville. I think it makes us that much more resolute that we will not allow that to go on here.
Let me take you to James Island again. Charleston City Council obviously voted unanimously in favor for amended moratorium on James Island. Where does the future of James Island go from here in your mind?
James Island is a tough place. It's a tough place because we have 3 functioning governments on the island, and like the entire Low Country, it is growing. It's mind-boggling what's going on in the Somerville area, what's going on in outer West Ashley, and Berkeley and Dorchester counties. So you come back to James Island, and yes, we definitely have our own problems. Is the growth appropriate? A lot of people don't understand how growth occurs. One of the biggest fallacies is I don't sit day after day and meet with developers and tell them that they better get busy developing that land. That doesn't happen at all. Development is spurred by property owners choosing to sell their land, and they sell for a myriad of reasons, a lot of different reasons. And it becomes hard when a property owner says, we're at the top of the market, I need the income, I'm going to sell my land, I always intended to, and now the time is right. If the zoning is appropriate to the area, and that property owner is not asking for anything special, no variances, no anything, it becomes illegal, actually, to stop the development. Now, where I come in is I can look at that and I can say, well, you know, would really like bigger buffers, would like a privacy fence. Would you be amenable to reducing the density of this and perhaps putting this couple of lots aside that have a lot of grand trees on them, negotiating those points. But as far as going in and saying, no, you can't develop, do we really want the government making those decisions for property owners? So I don't have that ability. What I do have is the ability to negotiate a better deal for the island, or in some cases, and I've done this any number of times,
Okay.
get a downzoning.
Okay.
We've taken what should have been commercial properties and made them residential, which I believe is a win for the island, because we've taken the 24-hour business or the bar
Right.
off the table and replaced that with something that's a little more amenable, which is residential. Land will probably not go undeveloped, but we can control how it's developed. And I can talk more about the moratorium whenever you're ready.
Oh, sure, go
Okay.
for it.
Well, the moratorium, I noticed that there was a provision of zonings that I felt was being abused. We had numerous commercial zonings, a general business or a limited business
Okay.
zoning, which are primarily supposed to be business. There is a residential component to those. And developers, oftentimes from out of state, not even from this area, come in and buy this property and look at that zoning and say, well, there's nothing they can do. I only want to use the residential component of it. And that's where these apartment complexes have sprung up. That's what happened essentially at the Gathering Place. There's much more to that, all sorts of legalities.
Okay.
But the Carmike Theater property, which actually is not in my district at all,
Okay.
I stepped in because I was asked to by islanders. That carried a general business zoning. I had no say in whether the property was sold or not. That was a corporate decision made by an entity far removed from Charleston. A developer came in and he said, I don't want to put business in a general business zoning. I want to put apartments. And it was allowed under the zoning. That's how that came to be. Now, what I have tried to do, and that's where the moratorium comes in, is to stop all of that type of development until we can look at the zoning, we can look at that residential component and say, is this something we even want, or shall we scale it back dramatically? How do we want the future of the island to look? That's what the moratorium was. And I am proud to say that I got 2 unanimous votes out of City Council. And that includes some council members who do not vote for moratorium.
Right. You're right about that.
Right. And that's all tied up into relationships.
Okay. And let me talk to you about City Council more, because obviously this is the headline from the Post and Courier. Charleston City Council won't boot Dean Regal from his West Ashley seat. Voters to decide his fate. When you heard the news that Regal was moved out of his district to go to really Somerville to take care of his ill wife, where did your mind go to?
That he had moved out of the district.
Yes, ma'am.
And we have the option of calling a hearing. We took what we heard from our legal counsel. She presented to council, and every single scenario led back to the same result, in which Mr. Regal retains his seat until the November election. At what time? At that time, if he is reelected, he's reelected. If he's not, then he retains the seat until January and the new person takes over.
Okay.
Now, that doesn't preclude council from asking for an opinion from the Ethics Commission, asking an opinion perhaps from the Attorney General as to what constitutes moving out and was this scenario legal. We received information essentially. That doesn't mean it's over. Maybe it is, maybe it's not, but we know at least that voters will have a say in November.
And speaking of November, let me turn to you, that is. Obviously, you're running for re-election.
I am.
I believe, what is your 4th term if you're
Correct.
elected?
Yes.
Why Kathleen Wilson? Why again?
I enjoy the job. I enjoy serving a very tough island. I think that I have the relationships on council. I mean, I've lived in Charleston for 30 years.
Right.
I raised 2 children on that island, one in a charter school, one in on the island K through 12,
Okay.
but both of them went to a charter high school right there on James Island. So I know how the island works. I know how recreation works on the island. I know where the sticky points are. I've watched the development before I was in the seat and during the seat, and quite honestly, it's what the public doesn't realize was stopped. For example, there was a parcel of property in which the city wanted the property owner to build commercial right out front, attached homes, meaning townhouses, and then single family on the other side of the property. It's the big tract right on Harborview Road across from the Exxon station.
Right.
The property owner said no, I said no, the neighborhood said no. And after revision, the property owner went to single family. He could have put about 132 homes on that property.
Okay.
We negotiated it down to 92.
Okay.
So it's those sorts of wins. It's still development, and I understand people's angst. I really understand that because I live in it too. And they said, well, the traffic. Well, every time I jump in my car, I'm causing traffic. Every time a resident jumps in his or her vehicle, we're causing traffic. So what we can do is we upgraded Harborview Road. Actually, that was supposed to be a much larger project. I had that scaled back. I had a large hand in how that road was shaped, and I think we have a very good outcome. So yes, we've had development, but it's what didn't occur that the public is not so much aware of. And I have a very, very good feel for that, and I've got the relationships on council. When I walk in the door, I automatically bring about 4 votes with me.
Wow. And obviously, you talk about the moratorium that is in this particular interview. What is your message to Charleston County Council as we sit here right now?
Please cooperate and let's find a path forward for James Island. Let's get the Folly Road overlay passed, and I understand that it is very close. There's some wheeling and dealing that's going on between the city and the county.
Okay.
The town has certainly stepped up, and they adopted the moratorium, or resolution for that moratorium. They don't have that much commercial property that would be affected, but nevertheless, it was a good showing. And I think we need to have a sense of cooperation and joint land use planning, and things that are not so egregious. We have our apartments on the island, that's all we need, and let's be wise in how we move forward.
Well, Kathleen Wilson, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate this.
Thank you, it's been a pleasure.
Likewise, always.
Good to see you.
You too.